Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're just going to do a quick episode here talking about Frigate in TrueNAS Scale with the latest version here in March of 2025. And I've made another video about this as sort of an introduction to that. And today we're going to talk about a couple things. Some people complained in the last video I didn't show configuration of the cameras. Well, I will talk a bit about that, and the main thing we're going to do in this video is we'll kind of do a quick summary of the features of Frigate, kind of show it running in our system here in TrueNAS Scale, and I set it up as default, and let's just go through all what I'm talking about here before I get into this. So first of all, I'm running Electric Eel 24.10.2. I'm running on a TrueNAS Mini 3.0.x. That's the hardware from IX Systems. And getting into Frigate here. So what I have going on here is I've installed this. It's running nicely. But if I go into the configuration, I click Edit up here, we're going to see some interesting stuff. So if I scroll down, we're going to see here that I have externalized my credentials for the cameras into this section here, additional environment variables. And I guess what you can do is you can create, if I scroll down a bit, I don't want to show passwords and whatnot, but I will show. Here's an example. In the documentation for Frigate, you can create environment variables that start with the word Frigate underscore and then whatever name you pick after that. And Frigate will allow you to substitute those environment variables into the configuration file. So here we have, for example, Frigate RTSP user ycam, and then the value that it'll substitute in is vsoft. And so let's see if I can remember. Well, I guess I can take a look here actually to see. I'm going to cancel out of this editing of the configuration. I'm going to go into the web UI in a new tab over here. Okay, and if I look then at the configuration, and this will be in a direct answer to people saying, hey dummy, you didn't show us the configuration. So I'll go here into the configuration editor of everything of how I have my system set up, and you can see it all here. So coming down into the camera section, here's an example of the configuration for the camera for my ycam, and that's the sort of cheap Chinese camera I got from Amazon. And so here's the credentials. So here's the path for the RTSP URL, and instead of hard coding the credentials in the configuration of Frigate, I'm using environment variables. And I just showed you, for example, Frigate RTSP user ycam. I had that set in the additional environment variables section of the Docker application in TrueNAS Scale, and it'll substitute it in, but you have to put these squiggly brackets around the variable name, which is pretty common to do in a lot of applications. So squiggly brackets, again, the environment variables all have to start with Frigate underscore, and then you can just create them. So I have the user and the password. Same with here. Here's another ycam. So this is 1, this is 2. And then if I come down here, these are the RTSP path for my Lorex cameras. So this is the first one, Frigate RTSP user Lorex, password Lorex, and can see how it's different from the ycam, right? And each camera has, if they support RTSP, they'll document how it's done. So up here for the ycam, you have the credentials there at the IP address and then the channel name. And for the ycam, it's For the high resolution stream, it's ch0_0.h264. For the Lorex cameras, they've documented it. The front part's all the same, but then after the IP address, you go /cam/real monitor $channel equals 1 ampersand subtype equals 1, and that gives you the high resolution stream. And there you have it for the Lorex camera. So we've got the eCam, the Lorex camera. I don't have the Nest cams working. I'm waiting for an update to the Go to RTC plugin, which adds a fix for the Nest cameras. Still waiting for that. But you can basically see the configuration of these cameras here working like this nicely. And let's go back over here and look at the configuration now of Frigate. So I just kind of showed the camera configuration. For anybody who's interested, you can pause the video, take a look at how I have it, and try it for yourself. And by the way, I should mention, you can do something like, let's do this. Well, I'm not going to show it, but you can grab this URL and you can paste that into VLC video player and test out if the credentials are working. It should just open up and start streaming in VLC if you have all the right values. So you can kind of play around with that, put the username and password, of course, instead of these environment variables, and try that out. All right, coming back to Frigate, we're going to edit the configuration of this Docker application. And we're going to look at actually, I don't think we want to edit. I'm just going to go back here, sorry. Just select the row. And as you scroll down here under containers 1, there is this button. When you hover over these icons, one of them will say volume mounts. That's important. So I'm going to come back to that in a second, but I'm going to show how I configured this Docker application. And this is the default, I believe, for most of the applications in TrueNAS Scale. I've talked about this in previous videos, but I'm just going to highlight it here for anyone who maybe hasn't seen those videos. If I scroll down to the bottom here, where is it? Yeah, right here. So there's this sort of configuration section, storage configuration. So the Frigate config storage, the Frigate media storage, the Frigate cache storage. By default, it's going to have this ixVolume data set created automatically by system. And that's kind of saying, instead of explicitly setting up a place for all the data and the configuration of this Docker application to live, I'm going to let the TrueNAS Scale system take care of that. The problem is, when you delete the application, sometimes it'll just delete these internal ixVolumes along with the application. Now, I believe in newer versions of TrueNAS Scale, when you delete the application, it'll pop up a new yes/no box saying, would you like to delete the data as well? But the thing is, you may not know where this data is living. Where is it living when you pick sort of ixVolume and let TrueNAS Scale decide where it's going to live? Well, let's take a look at how you can find that out. So getting out of this sort of edit, let's go back, select the row. I'm going to scroll down here, and again, I'm going to highlight over volume mounts, and I'm going to click that. So now this tells us physically where things are actually mounted to for this Docker application. So for example, this path in TrueNAS Scale is mounted into that Docker application. And this one, just looking by names, it looks like the media is stored there. This other third one down here is probably where the cache is stored in the cache directory, and the last one is probably where the configuration files are stored for Frigate itself. So that if I delete the application, the data is all stored in these folders, and as long as these folders don't get deleted, I can just create another application, point it to these folders, and everything should just work. Now, that's when you use the sort of internal ixVolume. What if, like I've talked about in other videos, what if I want to create another version, another application of Frigate in this list, and I want to migrate over all this data into a safe space that I control. And let's talk about how I've done that for other applications in here. Let's go over here to Datasets, and what I've done is I've created a data set for my Docker application. So this, and I called it Docker App Data. And when I expand that, typically I try to create one folder for each Docker application. So I have Home Assistant, and I have this other custom application that I made myself called Membership Signup. It's a PHP application, and all their data is stored there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create, let's see if I can actually over here highlight this row, add data set over here, I believe. That Frigate. All right, we'll pick apps, we'll click save. And there we have Frigate. Okay, so under Docker App Data, we have Frigate. Let's come back over here to apps. Now, how will we migrate our data from this, let's call it default settings version of Frigate, and create one where the data is stored where we want it to be stored? Let's go through those steps. So first thing we're going to do is click Discover Apps. We're going to click Frigate. Okay, available apps. Am I looking at something else? Search for Frigate. Here it is. I will click on it. Install another instance. Okay, and we'll call this Frigate X, whatever. Okay, normal image, mount USB. This is so that my AI USB stick, which I have plugged into the TrueNAS Scale system, will take load off the CPU as it processes the image checking. Talked about that in a previous Frigate video. Okay, let's go down to, I'll do the environment variables later. Enable no auth. I just want to enable all these things. Everything except for Go RTC. And it'll probably fail initially until I stop the other one because the ports are going to conflict, but I won't worry about that for now. All right, storage configuration. Let's do this right. Hostpath. And let's pick our data set. Docker App Data, Frigate. All right. So do we need to pick different folders for each one is the question. So this is for configuration. This is for media storage. So I'm thinking we will need to create folders under there. That's what I'm thinking. So let's go, I don't know if I can just type it in here. Let's see. Config, copy that, and down here we will pick host path. We are going to go media, something like this, and for cache we're going to pick host path, and we're going to go cache. Okay. So that's everything we're going to do for now. We'll leave the rest. Okay, now these are saying host path don't exist because they don't. Let's see if we can just click install, if it's going to freak out or what happens. All right, Frigate X. Let's try that. I may have to go back into the data sets and create those folders first. I'm not sure. We're doing this together. So it doesn't like the fact that I've given paths that don't exist. That's what it looks like. All right, so see if we can open this in a new tab without losing that configuration. And we'll create those folders here. Okay, add data set. And one is for config. And we'll leave this one as generic fine. Suitable for any share type. Okay, config. Parent, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to set an ACL? No, I don't want to. Okay, so there's config. Now we're going to add media. Leave it as generic. Return to pool. And one more. Cache. Whoops. Generic, save, return to pool. All right, so we've got our folders there. Coming back to here, let's just see if I can click install. And it's getting further, which is good. Port in use. Okay, I knew this would happen. So let's go here, and for now we're going to stop our existing Frigate app because I do want to use the same ports. I don't want to change everything up here. I just want to move the data from this standard settings install to my controlled settings install. So once that stops, you can come back here, click install again, and it should be fine this time. We're getting more progress. Almost there. All right. So this version is not going to work because none of the configuration has been merged over, etc., etc. But we will do that in a minute. But let's click on this for now. Let's try to open the web thing with no auth. And just curious. Yeah, it's up and running. If I look at configuration, there's probably going to be nothing in there. Or default settings that come with Frigate. Could be still starting up. I don't know. Let's see what happens here. Settings, logs. Weird. I get into this and yet. All right. Whatever's going on, we are going to not worry about it. Okay, there we go. Just took a while to load. Here's some default settings. Okay, you have to edit this stuff, but here's sort of your default install. System logs. Okay, everything's up. So now we want to migrate over our configuration, our media, our cache. So let's come back here. And what we saw when we clicked into here and we went down to mounts, it showed us where all that stuff was stored. So I happen to have a console open up here, and I happen to remember it was under the mount folder. Now, if I just do an ls, right, all I see is sort of my default pool tank because it's a hidden folder. If I look at it, ls minus la, there's this .ix apps folder. This is, as of March 2025, this is sort of the default area that TrueNAS Scale is putting your Docker app configuration and media and all that stuff somewhere under here. So if I go into .ixapps and I take a look, you can see here there's various folders. I believe when I looked, let's see here, app configs, I don't think it was under here. Oh yeah, okay. There's app configs and then there's Docker. App mounts was another one. I'm trying to remember what important information was in here. So I think these are the mounts, and I think, yeah, I don't have any mounts for Frigate X, I believe, but I did for regular Frigate. So there are those folders, those 3 folders from my original default settings Frigate application, all under there. So let's change into that directory. Do a quick ls-la. You can see the permissions here. It's just root is owning it. And that's something you should note. If we come back here, you will note if you look at the notes and application metadata, it does talk here when you click view more that the application does install as the username root group root. Frigate runs as a root user. That's just how that application is configured to run. Anyways, so now what we need to do is we need to copy these folders over to our dataset directory. Where's our dataset directory? It is somewhere under here, Docker app data and Frigate. Okay, so there it is. If we just take a quick look in those folders, do we have, it created, I believe it created these default settings and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy right over top of this, and we're going to see what happens together. See if that works. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to stop this Docker application right now. So neither of them are running, so that I don't have partially things copied while something's running. Not a good idea. So now I know where the folders are for both of these, and as soon as that's stopped, I'm going to come back into our command prompt, and here I am in the old ixVolume version of Frigate, right? And I'm going to copy all this stuff. So I'm going to go see how this works. Over to something like that. Is that the right way to do it? I guess we'll find out shortly. And I'll check by looking at the media folder. Should be a whole pile of gigs and gigs and gigs of media files, MP4s. All right, guys, so there's a ton of data, many gigs. This is going to take a very long time to copy. So instead, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, so instead of doing it, just copying everything over, I'm going to start with the cache folder. I'm going to copy all of that. Okay, hold on, let's do it this way. Cache star over to cache. So we'll copy the cache over because it's relatively small. We'll copy the configuration over because that's relatively small. And now we're going to move. We are going to move the media over. So do this carefully. No, not temp. Tank, Docker, Frigate. Okay, so I think just by specifying the folder that we're moved from there to there, that should do it. Hopefully it'll go a lot faster. Okay, I don't think I need to do an R. Let's just move that. Okay. Inter-device move failed. Media to unable to remove target. All right, let's how do we do? Can't move the top level folder. Let's go into media. Okay, here we go. We'll move this folder. And because media is a data set, so that was the problem. So here we're going to move this Frigate folder inside of the media folder into the media folder over there. Boom. Pretty sure a move will be a lot faster than a copy. Hoping. Many gigs later, we'll see. All right, everybody. So it took overnight. It's now 7:44 in the morning the next day, and the move just finished. So many gigs of data. These are magnetic drives; they're not SSDs. So anyway, we finished moving that over, and I believe at this point we should have everything we need. Let's see. We are in app mounts. Okay, so we're in the old folder. Let's move over to our new one. What is it called? Docker and Frigate. Okay, so we have these folders. Let's look at media. That's the really busy folder that has lots of alright, so I believe I've copied everything over. In the meantime, I added my environment variables with the credentials, usernames, and passwords for the cameras in here. Just copied them over from this one manually. I think I should be able to just start this up and we should be good. Let's see if that's the case. So I just clicked on the play button and let's see if this starts up. It says it's running. Alright, everybody, so I forgot one configuration setting. I think that's what was giving me problems starting this up. So let's go edit that. In fact, I already edited it, but I will just show you what I did. The shared memory size, it was some default value like 50 megs or something. It has to be much larger for me. My environment, I was having crash problems until I set this to a higher value. I think I had it set to like 450. I'm going to set it to 550 in this case. It's already saved. Let's go ahead and start up this app and see if we have any issues or if it starts up properly. Okay, we'll do some refreshing. Look at that, guys. So in fact, it looks like we have successfully moved our data over. Showing the live camera view. Let's look at the review part. These are all those MP4s that I copied over. So we're going to look at a calendar view. Okay, let's just go here to motion, and yeah. So if we do export, okay, so this is all the old stuff that we've copied over. So guys, that looks like we've successfully moved all the data over. Everything's working, and all the cameras are functional that I've configured, and there you go. You just copy those 3 folders over, make sure your settings in the Docker application are correct. For me, it was the shared memory parameter that I had to make higher, and there you have it. So let's take a look at a few things here. Once again, people wanted to see the configuration, so I have 30 days of recordings that I keep, which is lots and lots of gigs, especially when you're 1080p quality level recording. Yeah, 30 days of alerts, 30 days of detections. I do have the Coral AI USB stick from Google installed, so it offloads some of the AI processing from the CPU onto this USB stick as recommended. And you can see all my configuration here. I just copied it over from the other one. When I copied those folders, the config folder would have this file and anything else, any databases and whatnot for the different cameras. So you can see here on the screen the RTSP connection string for the YCam. You can see the RTSP connection string for the Lorex camera. And every camera, if they support RTSP, you're going to find some documentation somewhere on the internet that tells you what the format. I think it's always going to be RTSP user:password at IP address, and then some URL that's specific to that camera, however they've decided to implement it. So anyways, hope that helps you guys out. But yeah, looks like we are successful. We've moved the data over to our data sets, which the data now lives here under Docker Apps, Frigate, and now you can see we have these folders. And media is where all those MP4 files are kept. The configuration is here, and any temporary caching is here. And we have complete control over the data. So if we delete the app now, because we've configured it as Hostpath instead of ixVolume, like we've talked about in other videos, we are good. So let's go take a look. So example here, media storage, we picked Hostpath. We navigated to the path in the data set, and you, of course, you can do that here with the arrow, etc. But I just pasted it in. We did the same thing for caching. We did the same thing for the configuration, and we have total control over the data of this application. So I can delete this app. I can recreate another Frigate. I do have to enter all of the settings in the Docker side of things, but there really wasn't much there. I think it was 4 environment variables with username, password of the 2 different camera types, and we are good to go. So anyways, I hope that helps you guys out. I'm not sure if you guys wanted to see anything in particular in terms of the user interface or settings here in Frigate itself. I've configured a few different views. I have this one called Front Yard, and you can just add these different views by clicking this plus button here. You drag your cameras into that view in a certain order. You can size the boxes and create an icon. So I have this up arrow as the front yard, I have this down arrow as the backyard, and I just drag certain cameras into those views, and I can just quickly do that and see the cameras in that group. So that's the views. Then there's this here, which is review all of your recorded information, and here I can just drag through the timeline of all the recordings that are in my MP4 files that have been captured. So kind of a timeline here. Really like this view that I can put the cameras in there. Of course, going back here, no preview found because I was copying all the MP4s overnight. So Frigate wasn't running overnight. So I would have to go to the previous day before I started that copy. Anyways, I hope this helps you guys out. That's how you can move your data over from ixVolume to Hostpath into a data set that you've configured. Now you can back this up, not lose your application data, and it's very easy to recreate the app if for some reason things get messed up within TrueNAS Scale itself. You just create another one, point it to the data, and you're good to go. Catch you guys in the next video. Thanks.